Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
If you build it, they will come, Chaos Kids. I'm Amber.
And I'm Naomi. This is Crime, Wine, So Much Chaos.
So much chaos.
It's so good.
Oh, man. Oh, you started this trend, which I love, but also like I always remember day of that I'm starting and then I'm like, I don't have a good line. Fuck.
You gotta do what I do. Okay, the next time you're just sitting.
It's because I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Dude, I just keep a note on my phone for it. And like every once in a while, I'll just get inspired and I'll like throw a few on there and then close it out. And then I just kind of have this running list of, so you have options. You don't have to think of a day of. You can just like pick one you've already thought of.
Okay.
That's my pro tip of the day.
Thank you. I guess I just fly by the seat of my pants, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, sure, that's a way to do it too. It's fine. Sister, we have not seen each other or spoken to each other in like 2 weeks or something. It's been a lot. Yes. I feel like it has been like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't feel that way to the listeners, but we pre-recorded a lot of October because shit was crazy with us.
Shit was crazy in October, and we both took little vacations last week.
Yes. Please tell me your room was haunted.
Oh my God. I wish it was. It was not haunted. But New Orleans was amazing. And I will tell you this is one of the coolest parts. Our Airbnb was this tiny little house in this little neighborhood, like right on the edge of the Garden District. And we were only a couple of blocks away from a high school. And like for like 3 nights in a row at almost exactly at 5:30 every night, a marching band went through the neighborhood while they were doing their marching band practice.
That's amazing.
And it was awesome. This high school marching band just marching by our house.
Just got like a free concert 3 nights in a row.
Yes.
That's so cool.
It was so great. New Orleans was a blast. We had so much good food. We did some shopping. We saw the sights. I had a psychic medium tarot card reading from a trans Romani Jewish woman.
Shut up.
That was so incredible, Amber. It was so incredible and so intense that I literally sobbed at one point. It was so spot on. It was amazing. Good. She was amazing. Such a good time. And I sent you a picture
of the food.
Muffalata. I had muffalata in New Orleans.
That looked amazing.
It was so good.
There was some, this one you didn't send me. You put it on your socials and it looked like you were having a very bougie meal. There was a lot of gold on the table. What was that?
We had this bougie ass fucking meal at this like completely hidden gem walkable from our Airbnb at this place called Pigeon and Whale. If you're ever in New Orleans and you want to drop more than a dime and get an amazing meal, go to Pigeon and Whale. What you saw, sister, the one that looked the bougiest, that was actually caviar service, which Sissy Marissa had never had. And they delivered the most incredible caviar service I've ever seen visually in my life. And the bar is now like raised, and Marissa's bar is set. Her first bar set really fucking high. It was good. Incredible. It was incredible. We had such a good meal. It was so amazing. Yeah. So much good food. We walked everywhere. We saw all kinds of things. It was hot and muggy, which was, more than we're used to, but nice for us PNW gals to have a little break. How about you? You went away on a little romantic island getaway in the San Juans, yeah?
We did. We had a little cabin on the water. I use the term cabin loosely. It was very, very nice. We did a lot of eating, a lot of walking around. I love little towns like that and just like looking at all the tchotchkes. Like I love it. Yeah, a lot of good food. And we actually, you'll be surprised, Michael and I spent one evening in our cabin just watching movies.
What? Who are
I
you
know.
and what have you done with my sister?
Well, okay. The one time when I'm scoops into it is when you go to these places and you can like go to their lobby and go through their DVDs. And it's
Oh, yeah.
all like old, like, yeah. So we watched The Devil Wears Prada.
Uh-huh.
And then we watched this really bad movie called like RV. I think it was Robin Williams' last movie. And so that was really sad. And it was almost like a bad remake of like Christmas Vacation, or like, it was bad, but funny. But anyway, yeah, we just ate our leftovers from the very fancy meal we had the night before in our jammies on the couch and watched movies. It was amazing.
I love that for you. I love that
Yeah.
for you. I love New Orleans for me. And
Yeah.
but you know what? I'm glad to be back. This week was crazy. We're recording a day later than we normally do because it was an insane week for me at work after having been gone last week. Let's get into it, sister.
Yeah,
Let's get into it because I've got a crime for you. And I know this has been covered by a few podcasts and stuff. Some people might know about this one. I had not heard about it until recently. I actually, just to preface this, I got a lot of the information in here I got from a YouTube channel called Crime Zone. Because I was really struggling to get more details in like news articles and stuff. I found some Medium articles. I found a few news clips. This takes place in Australia. So I wonder, sometimes I feel like it's harder to get news articles outside of the States when I'm Googling in the States for some reason. And I don't understand why, but like, I was really having a hard time finding like good details on this. So, I'm hoping that Crime Zone had access to stuff that I didn't have. And if I get anything wrong, you guys, if you know, let me know. We always want to get it right here. It just seems to be the theme of the week here at Crime, Wine, and Chaos. So we want to get it right. So I'm going to tell you the story of Carolynne Watson and Julian Buchwald.
Okay.
So on March 4th of 2008, Carolynne Watson was 17 years old in her last year of high school, and she was in love. Carolynne was in a long-term relationship with Julian Buchwald. He was 22 or 23 at the time. I had various reports on that. Actually, he was reported to be anywhere from 22 to 25 at this time, but I think he was 22 or 23. She knew him through church. Carolynne and Julian had been dating at about 2 years at this point. Both of them still lived at home and were extremely devoted to their faith. They had plans to get married and had a meeting with the pastor of their church where they told him about this plan. The couple was also very serious about not having sex before marriage and reportedly never went beyond hand-holding in the relationship.
Wow.
No other displays of physical affection until marriage.
Okay.
They spent most of their time going hiking and going on picnic dates, driving around town, praying, studying, and waiting for Carolynne to turn 18 so they could get married. Yeah.
No.
Julian's family owned a piece of property that was over 1,200 acres in size that was mostly covered in bushland.
Oh,
okay. Look, I think bushland is Australian for like wild country. You know what I mean? Like it's
the outback.
Yeah. Well, bushland is like where there's vegetation. The outback, I think, is more like the desert. But bushland is like there's vegetation, there's forest, there's right. It's like when they talk about bushmen, right?
There's bushes there.
There's bushes there. There's trees there. You know, right? Like when we've talked about bushmen quite a few times on the podcast. We always have to like be like, okay, it's like they're outdoorsy, you guys. That's what that means. Okay.
That was like the last one where you were like, is that a car park? I don't know if that's a garage or a parking lot. Car park? I don't know.
No, cars parked there. I don't. Right?
Right. Yeah. It's so
you know
funny.
what I mean?
Bushland. There's vegetation. I don't know.
We all speak English, but we don't have the same language, you guys.
No.
Okay.
Correct.
So this is all outside of this small, extremely rural town of Budgery in Australia, which is a town with less than 200 people. The couple had plans on this day to go on a picnic on the Buchwald property, and Julian drove to the Watson home in Churchill to pick Carolynne up for their outing. Churchill is also small, but like not Budgery small. But it still had less than 5,000 residents, and it was about 20 minutes away from the Buchwald property in Budgery. So this is all, pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all like southeast of Melbourne, like quite a ways southeast of Melbourne in this very kind of more, it's all rural out there. It's like, it's not city life at all. This whole area, like this whole huge area of Australia that's like more country, right?
Got it.
So Julian picks Carolyn up, drives back with her to his family home. They load up his car with their picnic supplies and head out to a spot on the property that was far enough away from the house that they weren't gonna walk there. They were gonna drive out there. I mean, this is a big property, right?
Right.
The spot they chose for their picnic that day was next to a waterfall, and it was a location that they knew how to get to really easily. I think they had probably spent time in this particular spot together before, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're driving out to this spot. And Julian, they're on a road. They're driving on maybe on the outside edge of the property before they turn down like a dirt road to go in where they want to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Julian sees some kind of roadkill on the side of the road, and he tells Carolyn that he wants to check it out. So he drives a bit further down the road looking for a good spot to pull over. And then he gets out of the car and walks to go check out this dead animal, which is now far enough away behind them that he kind of walks out of sight from Carolyn.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolyn's not interested in this like at all. So she stays in the car, right? Like, whatever, Julian, go look at your dead kangaroo, whatever. So Julian goes to check it out and she stays in the car. I guess this is kind of normal for Julian to kind of wander off and explore or investigate something that's caught his eye while Carolyn kind of just chills and waits for him, you know?
I can relate to that. That's called ADD. It's like you saw something shiny and forgot that I was on the highway. Can you reel it in?
Can we hurry it up?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Let's go. At this time, Julian is taking a lot longer than he normally would. A good 10 minutes goes by and he still hasn't returned. And Carolyn's like legit getting worried. He's never taken this long before. And she started to think about whether or not she should get out of the car and like start looking for him at this point.
Right.
And just as she's thinking this, something catches her eye in the side mirror of the car. She sees a figure dressed all in black, including gloves and a balaclava.
A what?
It looks like a balaclava. It's like a ski mask, just the eyes cut out.
Oh,
The black hood that goes over the whole head with just the eyes cut out.
Okay.
And it looks like a man is running. This man is running towards the car. And before Carolyn can even register what is happening enough to do anything, the passenger door is wrenched open and this man has grabbed her and dragged her out of the car. He duct tapes her mouth, hog ties her, and throws her into the back seat of the car.
Oh my God. That is fucking terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Very soon after, the car starts up and this fucker is driving away with her.
Oh no.
And she isn't sure how long or far they drove, but it felt like a very long time. Eventually, the car stopped. The unknown man pulls Carolyn from the car and throws her to the ground. She didn't know where she was, but she could see that wherever they were was a very densely wooded area.
Mm-hmm.
And then this man cut off her clothes with a knife, leaving her completely naked on the ground, duct taped and tied up. And then he walks away from her and she can't see him. I think he must be behind her somewhere. And she hears the distinct sounds of digging just a few feet away. And Carolyn didn't know what to do at this point except to pray.
Yeah.
So by now it is well after 3 p.m., the time that Carolyn and Julian should have been back from their picnic, and Julian's parents are already concerned. It's very unusual for the couple to not be where they say they will be at the time they say they will be there.
Yeah, they sound
these
like
are
they're very responsible.
Really responsible kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Julian's mom is nervously pacing the property immediately surrounding the house, and she's constantly checking like down the dirt driveway, right, to see if Julian's car is on its way down the drive. And while she's doing this, she sees something sticking out of one of the wire fences around the property.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes to get it. And it turns out it was a glass bottle with a piece of paper sticking out of it. And Julian's mom could hardly believe what she was reading when she pulled this note out. I could not find anywhere else except for this YouTube video, like where it spoke to like what was said on this note. But I'm going to read you what the note says according to Crime Zone.
Okay.
But they put blank where all the cuss words were. So you got to fill in the blanks yourself on the cuss words.
Okay. All right.
So you blank couldn't leave us alone. So your son and girl went walkabout. You get Carolynne and Julian back when we finish our business in the area, but only if you behave yourself and don't blank us around again. Tell everyone they are on holiday. Don't you dare talk to the cops again, and you'll get your kids back. Blank us again, and you never see them again, because we'll blank the girl to death and burn her alive. And the blank boy will really enjoy the blank and sacrifice to our God to pay back 180x the hurts to us he did when he picked him up. This is your last warning. Do what we say, and the kids come back in alive condition.
What in the world is going on?
Right. Exactly. So despite the warning in the note, Julian's mom immediately calls the police and a search is organized very quickly. The initial focus was on the Buchwald 1,200-acre property, obviously, although this posed significant challenges, not just because of the sheer size of it, but the rough and wild terrain, in addition to hidden roads and paths like all throughout. Mm-hmm. And then it gets weirder, because police are informed by Carolynne's family that about 10 days prior to the disappearance of the young couple, they had also received a disturbing note discovered by Carolynne's dad on the front porch of their house. It said something about staying away, or these unknown perpetrators would make the Watsons' lives miserable and destroy their family. I guess Carolynne's dad had reported the note at the time that he found it, but the cops didn't really do anything because they figured it was just some very unfunny prank.
Okay.
But now that Carolynne and Julian are missing and another note has been found, it becomes much more upsetting. And a comparison of the notes determines the handwriting on both to be the same and that this is all clearly connected.
Yikes.
The Watsons and the Buchwalds cannot fathom who would target both of their families, and none of it makes any sense to them. But there is something in the note to the Watsons that indicates these notes came from a group that considers Christians to be their enemies.
Oh.
And both notes had a symbol on them that turns out is used by a satanic cult called the Order of Nine Angles.
The Order of Nine Angles?
Mm-hmm. This is an actual self-described supposed satanic group. This is actually just, you ready for this? Crime, Wine, and Chaos alum. Neo-Nazi organization that hates Christians.
It's always
because they hate Jews and anything Judeo-Christian that doesn't support the New World Order of an Aryan master race.
Oh my God. All right.
The group was started in the 60s in the UK, but got bigger and more well-known in the 80s, with groups popping up outside of the UK, and they are known to preach amongst their hate rhetoric human sacrifice as part of their practice.
Oh, God.
Now, as far as anyone knew, the Order of Nine Angles didn't have a presence in Australia at all, but authorities did consider the possibility that this was like an opening move by a new chapter of the group in order to establish itself in Australia with as much notoriety as possible, like right out the gate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, here we are, fuckers. We're in Australia now.
God.
Days pass, and Carolynne and Julian are nowhere to be found, not even a trace of them anywhere. And while the cops aren't convinced that a satanic cult is to blame, they aren't ruling out foul play at this point. And even if they were just lost out there, the couple was out in the wilderness without the means to survive for very long. I mean, they went out there with like a picnic and the clothes on their back, right? And then after 6 days of searching, Carolynne and Julian were both found alive.
Oh.
They had appeared disheveled and stumbling out on a roadway near Alpine National Park and picked up by a passing farmer hundreds of miles away from where the two had disappeared.
What?
Yeah, like a good 6-hour car ride from the Buchwald property outside of this giant national park.
I am so curious. What?
They were both sunburned, covered in cuts, blisters, and bruises all over their body, but otherwise they were physically all right. So once it was established that they were physically okay, police quickly set out to get their statements. So they spoke with Carolynne first. And this is what she said. She said after she started praying, while she heard that digging, the digging suddenly stopped and she heard her kidnapper walk away. So she's laying there naked and tied up, and she is struggling to get free, unable to untie herself. And then quite a bit of time passes, and then Carolynne hears Julian's voice. He's screaming out to her, and she's so relieved. And as he approaches, she can see that he is also naked and tied up. He was able to loosen his restraints enough to come to her and had also found a knife that the attacker had used in a pile of stuff nearby. So they cut each other out of their ropes and they searched the immediate area for anything that might help them survive, grabbing a sleeping bag and some food that the kidnapper had left behind, and they ran off into the woods. They were determined to get as far away as possible from whoever their attacker was.
Okay.
They are both still completely naked.
Mm-hmm.
This is when Julian tells Carolynne what happened to him after he left the car to go look at that dead animal. He told her it was obviously a setup because as he was bent over looking at it, he heard quick footsteps coming up from behind him and that he was violently struck over the head and knocked unconscious.
This is a very weird setup.
Mm-hmm.
That, okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I just happen to know these two are going to be on a picnic and that this guy likes to look at dead animals. And Okay.
Okay. I see
Sounds
what you're
sus.
doing there. Okay.
Mhm.
He told her that when he came to several hours later, he was nude and tied up and started calling for Carolynne. Carolynne explained to police that over the next few days, the couple tried desperately to find their way out of the forest while they struggled with having so little in the way of supplies, especially since the temperature was so high during the day and so low at night, barely able to keep warm while they tried to sleep. And all through this, the two are terrified that their kidnapper will find them. They got extra freaked out that they would be caught by him when they had gotten themselves so turned around that they literally came upon the same exact spot that they had started at days earlier.
Is it the spot they started at not far from... Okay, so Julian was at the dead animal. How far did she get driven to? Because he eventually found her.
She got driven hundreds of miles away, remember?
Well, how did he get to her?
According to him, he was knocked out, so he doesn't know. So maybe he was also thrown in the back of the car?
Okay. All right.
So, despite the possibility that they might get caught, Julian rushed into the campsite and quickly grabbed a backpack that ended up having some clothing in it that the two could put on and not be totally naked in the woods anymore. And then they finally did find their way to the road where they were able to flag down that farmer that found them. Julian's account to police was the same as Carolynne's, minus the part he was unconscious for, obviously. So police head out to the national park where the two had been lost almost a week to try to track down the area that they had been taken to and then escaped from, right? And they find that spot. And then they collected a shovel, duct tape, bits of rope, and the clothing that had been cut off of Carolynne and Julian.
Okay.
When police analyzed this stuff, everything took a very drastic turn. All of these items belonged to Julian Buchwald. Mm-hmm. Police had already had a few inklings that maybe Julian wasn't telling the whole truth about things, mostly because the spot on his head he claimed to have been cracked that knocked him out wasn't as injured as they would have expected for such a blow. And with this analysis of the items recovered from the woods, police interrogate Julian further, and he finally caves and admits that he had been behind the entire thing.
What? Why?
You're going to love it, sister. Oh. You're going to fucking love it. He tells the police that he had planted the black clothes, the balaclava, and the gloves ahead of time, along with a bunch of the other stuff he needed to kidnap his own girlfriend. He was also the one who sent those notes to both the families in order to make it look like that Colt was responsible for their disappearance. And the animal on the side of the road was also just a ruse, a way for him to go change into the clothes he would wear as Carolynne's attacker, along with the stuff he would need to tie her up.
Oh my God.
He drove them out to Alpine National Park, and the shovel was to dig a hole to bury a bunch of things that would give away the fact that he was behind the whole thing. This was the digging sound that Carolynne heard. Not a hole meant for her grave, just a part of Julian's cover-up.
Why?
He hid his car in the woods so that it wouldn't be available for them to drive to safety, and then he cut up his own clothes and tied himself up before running to Carolynne and calling for her.
Oh my God.
So he made sure to leave just enough food and that sleeping bag so they wouldn't starve or freeze to death. But his plan was to keep them naked on purpose because Julian wanted to have sex with Carolynne.
Damn it. I was going to say that about 30 seconds ago. And then I was like, nope, let her finish. Are you fucking kidding me?
Mm-hmm. This is fucking men. The couple was in disagreement on when to get married. Julian wanted to get married right away because Julian wanted to have sex. And Carolynne wanted to wait until she finished school and they started their lives together. But since there would be no sex until they were married, Julian decided the best way around that was to put Carolynne in danger of dying in the woods to get her to give in and have sex with him.
I've heard it all now. I mean, I truly have no fucking words. The planning that went into this. Okay.
He badgered her for days out there in the woods, telling her they would likely die out there, so they should have sex to consummate their relationship and get married in the eyes of God before they died. Oh, and of course, it would also keep them warm and help them survive.
I mean, I don't know about you, but like naked and no food and abrasions and trauma really gets me in the mood. I mean, like, read the room, Julian. You know, read the brush or the bush or whatever.
The bush.
Fuck, read the bush.
Carolynne never gave in.
Good for her.
She said God would get them out of the woods alive. And Julian's take was trash. God's going to take care of us. That's what she said.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be fine. And it also turns out that among the items that Julian had taken out there to the woods was a map of the national park, meaning the two were never actually lost. Julian just led Carolynne in circles on purpose, letting her believe they were running from some psychopath trying to find them and kill them when he was literally just putting her life at risk so she would fuck him.
He might have had a better chance just doing the goddamn picnic.
Right?
I bet she would have liked the picnic more.
Feed her chocolate-covered strawberries. I mean, don't feed me chocolate-covered strawberries because that's disgusting.
Don't give me fruit and chocolate together.
No, fruit and chocolate should never go together. But some people like that. It's considered romantic, whatever. Basically, he finally led them out of the forest when he realized Carolynne was not going to do that and he wasn't going to get what he wanted.
This guy sucks.
After this confession, Julian was slapped with multiple charges, and sometime in August of 2009, he was convicted of kidnapping and filing a false report. So he was out on bail, waiting for sentencing, and he wouldn't officially be taken into custody until his sentence was handed down. His sentencing hearing was scheduled for September 2009, and he did not show up for that. Instead, he dyed his hair and eyebrows black and covered his face in tanning solution so he could concoct himself an Indian passport, and he fled Australia.
Okay, Scott Peterson. Good God.
He made it out of Australia. Like, nobody flagged that shit, but the Indian government was not fooled by his shitty disguise. And they remanded him into custody, sent him to Singapore, where he was picked up by Australian authorities.
God.
It's assumed that India was just a stop along the way and that his ultimate destination was Germany, where he had family. After he got back to Australia, he was sentenced to 7 years, 3 months for the kidnapping, plus 6 months for fleeing while on bail. But he would still end up in Germany anyway. Apparently, he was born in Germany. His family moved to Australia when he was 1 year old, and he had never actually obtained Australian citizenship. So while he was sitting in prison in Australia in 2014, he was notified that his visa was expired. He tried to fight it, but in 2016, he was just deported to Germany.
Oh, okay.
And that's the story of Carolynne Watson and Julian Buchwald.
How's Carolynne? How
I did not find.
What do you even say to that? Exactly.
I mean, I guess the only saving grace is he did not force himself on her. I mean, now I'm not giving him any credit or anything. This isn't one of those, like, you know, weird serial killer or whatever, like moral weird, like, moral stances where it's like, oh, well, he didn't rape her, so he's not that bad. McCamey. I'm looking at you, McCamey. I don't use cuss words.
Oh, God. But everything she thought about this person that she believed was her that's awful. Oh, my God.
It's crazy pants.
That's like Sherry Papini. I covered her case a long time ago. She faked a kidnapping because she basically wanted to go screw her ex-boyfriend for a while. She was recently sentenced. She had him brand her, starve her, and then drop her off like hundreds of miles away.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. It's just so wow.
But in that instance, like, she consented. She faked her own kidnapping. In this instance,
true.
He actually kidnapped her. He just pretended like he wasn't her kidnapper.
Which is so spooky.
Yes.
Because too, it's like, I guess he knew well enough to, I don't know, run off as the perpetrator like relatively quickly, because even though he's disguised, like, your partner and like their mannerisms and the way that they move and the way that they walk and like
the shape of their body.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Like,
oh,
she
that
wouldn't
is
have
so
figured
chilling. Yeah.
Yes.
I hate that.
There it
Thanks for
is.
that.
You're welcome. That was that's what I got for you today.
Okay, well, that was terrible. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to tell me a terrible story.
I
is
am
technically chaos, but is going to leave us all bummed out, I feel like.
Well, yeah. So I'm going to tell you about a missing person. And this person, I have a friend from junior high, Chandra, and she is very good friends with this family. So she posted on her Facebook page an article like, hey, he's still missing if anybody knows anything. So I was like, hey, I'll go ahead and do that story on the podcast if the family would be okay with that. And she said, I'm sure that they would be very appreciative. So I am going to tell you about Larry Riegel.
Okay.
So it's Christmas Day, 2009. Larry spoke with several friends and family members and promised to see them the following day at a family gathering. So they were going to have a belated Christmas dinner on December 26th.
Okay.
So he was supposed to join his family for that dinner, but he never showed up. I know. It's always so hard when it's the holidays.
Yeah.
So by January 10th, 2010, his family filed a missing persons report with the Yakima police. This is in Yakima, Washington.
Okay.
So Larry is an avid hunter and a pilot and very connected to his family. His younger sister, Susan, was particularly close to him. She said when she was an infant and Larry was in the first grade, he brought her to school for show and tell.
Oh my God. I love that so much. That's so cute.
So cute. I know.
That's
so
like
adorable.
A family story that will never die too. Like, that's always like, that's who he is. That's who he is. That's the real Larry. Yeah.
Absolutely. Everyone that knew him described him as gregarious. Susan called him a chatty Cathy because he couldn't go anywhere without just starting up a conversation with everybody around him, right?
Love it. I get it.
I know.
I get it.
I get it. Oh my God.
Making friends everywhere we go.
I know. He was I don't want to say was because we don't know where Larry is. So I have to keep correcting myself because a lot of the articles are was, some are is. My apologies. Sure. He is the father of two, and he had attended his daughter's wedding just 4 months prior to his disappearance.
Oh,
I know. So when he didn't show up for the Christmas dinner, Susan knew right away that something was very wrong. Everyone in the family was trying to reach him, and in the days following, they never heard a word. And eventually, days turned into months, and months turned into years. Just nothing. So he was 57 years old, living in Yakima with his girlfriend, who was a person of interest more than once in this case. So I'm not going to say this person's name because she is not a suspect, but if you want to know, it's in the articles. But so Larry's mom, Cecilia, spoke with Larry on Christmas morning when he called her to thank her for the Adidas sweats that she got him. So precious. 57 years old and his mom's buying him sweatpants. I fucking love it. It's so cute. So he was like, thanks for the sweats and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for family dinner.
Right.
Ugh. So Cecilia, who at the time of this article, which I think was a few years ago, I'm not even sure if she's still alive, but
His
she was
mom?
yeah, she was 90 years old and she still would regularly drive through Yakima, specifically the lower Yakima Valley, looking in ditches and canals and ponds for her son.
Oh my God. I can't. Ugh.
I know. Yeah. So Cecilia had 4 daughters and Larry was her only son. Sweet boy. The family owns I actually saw recently that it's on the market. So I don't know if this is the family that is selling, but they had owned a small farm on Lateral C Road between Fort and LaRue Road for like decades.
Okay.
And Cecilia, along with her daughters, are very familiar with this area. And Susan just wants for her elderly mother to have answers, obviously, to what happened to her son before she passes. I can't.
Right.
I can't. She's 90 and drives around and looks for him. I know. So obviously, his disappearance has completely consumed the family, and the case was reclassified from a missing persons case to a homicide case several years ago.
Really?
And I'm not sure. It didn't sound like that was based off of any evidence, but more of just like the time that has lapsed.
Sure.
And I get that reclassifying it that way maybe affords them different resources.
Sure.
So I don't know. I guess that's a good thing. Cecilia and her family feel strongly that he has passed away and that his remains are somewhere in that Yakima Valley. The family has put up several billboards in high traffic areas over the years with Larry's picture and reward money and the number to the Yakima police for tips. Yakima County prosecutor Joe Brusick believes there are people in the community that know exactly what happened. There have been rumors over the years of sightings of Larry and people speculating that he started a new life in another town, but none of those rumors have been supported with any evidence. And the family knows that Larry would never do that. He wouldn't leave behind his 2 kids. Like, they're just like, stop with the bullshit. You know, people just want to insert themselves, you know, like Randy.
Yeah. It wasn't Randy. Randy did not insert himself.
Oh. Who was
his nemesis?
Who was the one inserting himself?
I can't remember what his name was now. It was Randy was the
person
guy
saying that it was Randy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
So we don't know anything. Like, he called and said, "Merry Christmas. Thanks for the sweats. And I'll see you tomorrow." But like, we don't have any notion of like what he was doing in the days leading up to his disappearance, anything about the nature of his relationship with his girlfriend.
Yes. So we've got a few tidbits here that led people or led police into looking into this avenue, but it doesn't sound like it got them anywhere. So he lived on this huge plot of land, and he also had a tenant who owed $3,000 in back rent.
Wow.
So that was a problem.
Right.
They did confirm that he had made several calls to his family members on Christmas Day, as well as to that tenant. So that was an avenue of like, maybe someone that's pissed off at him or whatever, right? But that didn't turn up anything. Larry's oldest son, Brian, tried calling him numerous times from Christmas night all the way through early January and never got any response. He also had recently had neck surgery and would likely not be able to travel very far on his own.
Okay.
But it also made him less than capable of defending himself if he was attacked in some way, you know?
Sure.
So his girlfriend has been a person of interest at various points. She was the last person known to have seen him. Late on the morning of December 28th, Susan went over to the house that Larry shared with his girlfriend, and Susan said that the girlfriend told her that Larry had gone to Seattle on Christmas Day.
What?
And she was like,
did she say why?
She has all kinds of stories of that Larry was abusive to her, that he got mad and stormed off, all the things, but none of that has really been substantiated. The thing that's cuckoo bananas, though, is that in May in 2013, she said that he returned for a while and then left again on the night of January 4th after he assaulted her.
Okay, Virginia Hayden.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Getting big time Virginia Hayden vibes. Did she write any letters? Did she write down any letters?
Oh, no, but in 2013, she was back in the news when she was charged with welfare fraud, perjury, and false verification for using Larry's EBT card several times in the weeks after his disappearance. She also filled out an EBT card like renewal form, claiming that Larry still lived with her, even though he had been missing for more than 2 months at that point. She said that's because she did all the grocery shopping and she always used the EBT card, and she is holding firm that, you know, he stormed off and he's coming back. Yeah. So she entered a diversion program where she, like, whatever, complied with probation and the charges were dismissed. She completed those requirements in February of 2014. His family has provided DNA and the vertebrae in his neck. I'm not really sure what that means. I'm not really sure what this neck surgery was, but basically they're like, any skeletal remains will be like, it'll be an absolute. We'll know right away it's him because of this neck surgery. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every time remains are found in Yakima, the family calls the coroner.
Like,
It's just,
I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine.
yeah. Yeah. Yakima is one of Washington's largest counties and has a fair amount of gang and drug violence. Susan, his little sister, calls it a killing field with the perfect landscape to hide a body.
I mean, it is like vast. There's wilderness, there's farms, there's canyons, there's a river. I mean, it's wild country out there.
I didn't know until, like, I worked for the courts, and one of the many conferences, you know, like different courts throughout the state would host the annual conference or whatever. And one year it was at Yakima, and whoa, talking to the employees that worked at that court, their caseload was, I mean,
insane.
I had no idea that Yakima was so, I always just think of it as wine country. I had no idea that it was not good.
No, it's not. And, you know, some of that is like the farming, and there's a lot of farmhand type situation. There's like a very large immigrant population there. So like wage wise, like the wages are pretty low for most of the work that's available in Yakima. I mean, the only people that are really making money are the people that own the farms.
It's so impoverished when you drive through there. It's so sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
God. There was another unnamed person of interest who has since passed away. Susan says that Cecilia sings to Larry's picture every night.
Oh,
I cannot. The family also said that Larry always wore a custom opal ring on his ring finger since his early 20s. It's like a one of a kind that's never been found. And they hope that maybe if that ring is ever recovered, it may lead to Larry's body. And I'll put it on our socials and in the show notes of where to call. If you have any tips, you can leave a tip anonymously. There is a reward offered by the family for any information leading to the recovery of Larry or his remains. Yeah.
I hate it, sister.
When you see pictures of him, he's just one of those people that has like really kind eyes.
Yeah.
You know, just like your friend's dad.
Yeah.
He just looks so kind. Yeah. So sad.
I always
I
wonder
can't.
though, like how these women, assume that she did something. Like how did she by herself deal with a grown man's body?
Okay, well, you know what's very weird is, so there was another case almost identical to this in Washington, and it was my former coworker's brother.
Whoa.
Who had been missing for like 20 plus years. He had this big plot of land in Arlington. He was retired from Boeing. He had all these classic cars. He had a wife that nobody in the family liked. And she claimed, do you remember this case?
No.
She claimed that he just like ran off with some other woman. And there she was living on his property, collecting his Boeing pension with his classic cars for 20 plus years. He just was gone, and they knew that that was bullshit. And I don't know what the tip was or how they figured it out, but they found his remains fairly recently. I want to say like 2015 under a slab of concrete.
On the property.
On the property. She had built like a new driveway or a new garage that some local dudes helped her with, and he was dismembered and under that slab.
She dismembered him and put him there and then had somebody come in and like do work to cover it up for her.
Yeah, but
Unknowingly.
unknowingly, but she did have people that helped her dismember him. I'm not sure what happened to them, but yeah. Same
my
thing,
God.
collecting his fucking pension, living in his house, and like I don't
Virginia
know,
Hayden.
he just left me. I don't know.
He just left. He went to Mexico and was sick and just died there in
Mhm.
Mexico. He's just gone now.
Yeah. Like, no.
Okay. No. That's not what happened.
Mm-mm. Nobody abandoned. But first off, it's very rare that someone does that. And also, like, you own this huge plot of land, all these classic cars, and you have a pension from Boeing, and you're just like, I don't want any of that.
Right?
No, same with Larry. He owns all this land and he was retired. He was a pilot. He also, in the time that he's been gone, his kids had children. So he has
Right.
2 grandkids. Like,
No, he's not.
no, that didn't happen.
No.
Mm-mm.
Nope. I wonder if that tenant did have something to do with it with her.
Maybe. Oh, it's so fucking.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
I hate it so much too.
Oh, well,
I love
thanks
the
for that.
protections of, oh yeah, you're welcome. Of, you can't just like come into someone's place and start searching. Like that needs to be intact. But also sometimes the bar for when you're granted a search warrant to do that is sometimes too high.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
because
a
he could be
sticky
somewhere.
gray
He
area.
could be on that property for sure.
Just like my coworker's brother, he was there
Yes.
the whole time,
whole
and she was a
time.
person of interest the whole time. But it never
whole
met
time.
it never met the standard of search warrant and jackhammering the fucking
Right.
driveway.
Right.
And I get why, like you can't just come in and do that. But fuck, man,
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So devastating.
Oh, well, thank you, Chandra, I guess.
Thank you, Chandra. If I got anything wrong, please tell me.
Let us
Anything.
know.
Yep, tell us.
Look, we know that those of us that are, in the true crime podcasting community know that there's definitely some podcasters out there who are not great at taking feedback and correcting themselves and doing, justice and telling these events ethically. And we strive very hard to do that. So if we get anything wrong or things we don't know or we said something inappropriate, oh my God, please tell us. Please call us out in public. Put us on Front Street. We'll cop to it, like right here on the show. We'll record it for posterity.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Well, sister, it was so good to see you.
So good to
record
see
an
you.
episode with you. I miss you.
Missed you. I want to see 3-dimensional you soon because I love you.
Yeah,
I can't hug through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I love you. And
Love you.
that was all really, this was really chaotic.
And chaotic. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers.
Because I know every once in a while you are just sitting somewhere. It happens.